And we begin this Sunday morning with the Democrats' rebranding of Kamala Harris with just 100 days until Election Day. After nearly 4 years of policy failures from the Biden-Harris administration at the border, tax and spending leading to inflation, the media is now relaying the Democrat talking points that say Kamala was never in charge of the border after all. And no, she had no role in any economic policy. Well, in fact, the vice president was the deciding vote and the tiebreaker 33 times for Democrat policies, including the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, which totaled $2.5 trillion and sparked the inflation, part of the $7 trillion in spending, which at least in part led to sky-high inflation, currently up 20% on her watch. Despite not receiving a single vote in the year's Democrat primaries and dropping out of the 2020 Democrat race before they actually held their first primary, Harris now has enough support from delegates to become the party's nominee, according to the Associated Press. So let's go back to policy decisions and proclamations from the vice president during her term.
I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role and the way that it is being administered and the work it is doing, and we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
I am running to declare once and for all that health care is a fundamental right. And we will deliver that right with Medicare for all.
We're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals. That's correct.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
We have confused the idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street. Instead of understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities, you put more resources into the public education system of those communities, into affordable housing, into home ownership.
Well, that was then. Now it's a presidential race on the line. Harris is trying to disassociate herself from the impact of the Biden-Harris policies, including inflation up 20%, real wages down almost 2%, and the U.S. national debt approaching $35 trillion. And, of course, the border crisis that she was put in charge to oversee has resulted in more than 10 million migrants illegally entering the country, with nearly 2 million people that we know of who have evaded apprehension and have completely disappeared into the country, as well as China ramping up aggression against the United States here at home and abroad. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis with reaction. Governor, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here. What is your reaction to this new rewriting of history, rebranding of Kamala Harris?
Well, I'll tell you, Maria, the Biden-Harris policies put the Democratic Party in a very precarious situation this election. And then the debate where Biden, they tried to do the basement for 3.5 years, and it was clear after that debate that was not going to happen. So the media really worked hard to push Biden out. And now what you see is all the arteries of the left, the corporate media, Hollywood, academia, they're using all the king's horses and all the king's men to try to put the Democratic Party back together again. And they have to whitewash Harris's background to be able to make her palpable to the American people. But I think we've all seen her. I mean, she's incredibly vapid, even more incredibly liberal, and she doesn't have any accomplishments. In fact, she owns all the policies of the Biden-Harris administration. She owns the border. She owns the inflation. She was there cheerleading that every day for the last 3.5 years. So I don't think it's going to work, but make no mistake about it. You are in for 100 days of massive gaslighting from the corporate press. They're already taking down. There was a website where she was the most liberal senator, GovTrack. They took that down. They're whitewashing things from her past. That's going to continue, and they're going to try to pull the wool over the eyes of the American people.
Well, I mean, the Democrats have been misleading the public for so many years, beginning with, Russia collusion, the Hunter Biden laptop, the origins of COVID, the true state of Joe Biden's mental capacity. Will Kamala and her team continue to mislead? Or, I mean, is it a reach to say lie to the American people in the next 100 days and perhaps in office?
Oh, without question. We're down here in Florida. It's hot in July, be hot in August, but, you're going to see a blizzard of lies over the next few months. That's what it's going to be about. There's not going to be any pushback from the entrenched corporate media, and they're going to try to rewrite history, and they're going to try to present her as something that she's just not. And here's what I would just say to Republicans, because we wanted to run against Biden. I think the election was over once Donald Trump walked off that debate stage at the end of June, there was no way Biden was going to win. Now that he's out, if we had to pick someone, I think we would pick Harris because she owns all the policies. She's not going to be able to distance herself from them. And most Americans think this country's going in the wrong direction. So make the case there. And I think ultimately truth is going to prevail. But the one thing we do, I think, have to just acknowledge, Biden set the bar so low. It's like the soft bigotry of low expectations. He couldn't even deliver a sentence. So now you take somebody like Harris, who's not exactly lighting the world on fire, but Biden makes her look like Socrates just because we're so used to him not even being able to do anything. Now you have somebody that's younger. So we're in for a battle here, but the record speaks for itself. The Trump administration was far more successful than the Biden-Harris administration, and people are going to have that stark choice.
You know, the RNC has put election integrity as its priority in terms of ensuring a fair election in November. And in many cases, it's up to the states. Are you expecting a fair election? What should the states be doing to ensure such a thing?
In Florida, it'll be 100% fair because we've actually dealt with all these issues. When I became governor, we banned ballot harvesting. We have universal photo ID. We eliminated unsolicited ballots through the mail. We have an election crimes unit where we actually prosecute people at the state level for voting if they're illegally in the country, if they double vote in another state, on and on down the line. And the result is the elections we've had since I've been governor have been the most transparent and efficient anywhere in the country. Now, not every state has done that. So I think it's incumbent upon the organizations on the Republican side. If there's ballot harvesting allowed in these states, we have to do it. If there's Zuckerbucks being poured into these states legally, then we have to do that. We can't fight with one hand tied behind our back. So I do think that's going to be an issue. We've had 4 years to prepare, but you look at states like Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, we need to do that. The other thing I would just say, Maria, just being down here in Florida, that Harris just announced that somehow they're going to make a play for Florida. They tried to show there was like 100 golf carts at the Villages retirement community rallying for Harris, which, you know, is like a small fraction of the number of golf carts going to every morning tea time at the Villages. Florida is off the map. When I was elected governor, there were 300,000 more Democrats in the state than Republicans. We are approaching, and we will have it by November, 1 million more registered Republicans than Democrats. So I would invite the Democrats and Kamala. We have the top-rated economy in the country of all 50 states. Spend your money down here. It's the equivalent of lighting it on fire, but I welcome that. You are not going to win Florida. You're going to run into a big red brick wall.
Well, congrats on all you're doing in Florida. I know you once again got an increase in the credit rating from Fitch. Real quick on this investigation into what went down in that assassination attempt on President Trump. The Wall Street Journal says it's the gross incompetence of the Secret Service. Last week, Christopher Wray basically tried to throw doubt in the whole thing, questioning on whether or not he actually was shot. Of course, last week we had Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin, here to talk about what he is seeing in his preliminary investigation. He said, look, they had the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms get the pictures of the dead shooter. The Secret Service wasn't even at the early meeting. The FBI had to correct the record, come out with a statement. Yes, of course, Trump was shot. Your thoughts on that?
I think these agencies have lost the trust of the American people. I mean, go back to the Las Vegas shooter. We never learned a thing about him. You look at the congressional baseball shooting. I was on that team. Steve Scalise got shot. For years, the FBI said it was suicide by cop. No, this was a radical leftist who targeted Republican congressmen. Now you have the FBI director casting doubt what we saw on TV live. That President Trump was shot in his ear. These agencies are failing the American people. They lack the credibility, and this has been a really, really swift descent over the last 10 years. But I just think it's appalling how they've responded to this.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.